Hello, and welcome to Remember the Film, the podcast where we look forward to 2021 because 2020 was terrible. So hopefully this can be a bit better. Hi, I'm Hugo, and I'm joined by my usual co-hosts, Jeff Grisolrich.
Hello.
And Josh Bradley.
Hello, hi, hello.
Slurping his coffee. Anyway, so...
Might get that? Slurp, 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 slurp.
Yeah, mic's working. So this week, we're talking about two things. First, for our film to remember, we're talking about MA RAINEY'S BLAck BOTTOM that came out at the end of the year, 2020 on Netflix, and is going to be talked about during awards season. So we thought it would be an interesting movie to talk about now. And then for our main topic, we'll be discussing 2021, and specifically we'll be talking about some of the movies that are coming out in 2021, hopefully, because hopefully everything doesn't get delayed again.
Who knows?
We don't know.
Just
but we're
guessing.
We are hopeful on this podcast.
2021, with as frequently as people said the words 2020 last year. I mean, I swear it came up in every conversation. Someone said, well, yeah,
oh my
2020.
God, that's so true.
But so even the number 2021 sounds ridiculous to me.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like we've had a year. It sounds like that was just a period of time where time was stuck and nothing happened. But anyway, we'll be talking about some of the movies that we're excited for this year that hopefully do come out. But starting off, let's get into our film to remember, which this week was MA RAINEY'S BLAck BOTTOM, starring Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman, I would say, are the two main characters. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, how do we feel about just basic off the top thoughts? What did we think about this movie, Grizz?
I enjoyed it. I think it went in directions I wasn't expecting. I also didn't have all I went in knowing when I first watched the movie. I watched this a few weeks ago. Was that everyone was telling me this is going to be a movie to talk about come Oscar season. So I went in with just the expectation that I was seeing a good movie. I didn't know any of the history of MA RAINEY. I didn't know, anything about the play that this, is based on, and it was really well done. It still felt like a play to me, which might not be an appeal to some people, but I actually liked the very, nature of it being like you're in the theater watching the play. Felt very cool to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Josh, what do you think?
I also liked it a lot. Like Grizz, I actually watched it a few weeks ago when it came out, and then I watched it again, this week in preparation for this podcast. And common thread for me is that I like movies more the second time I watch them. I definitely like this a lot more the second time. I think the first time, the one takeaway after the first viewing was the performances from Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis. They're both very powerful, and that's kind of the headline of the movie as you're walking away. It's like, wow, that was some really good acting. But when I watched it the second time, I kind of got to dig into the story a little bit more and kind of really pay attention to the themes and also the staging. Grizz mentioned that it felt a lot like a play. I agree, but I think they also use the space to get some storytelling across, and I think this is actually really good.
Well,
and the things that are good about it weren't apparent to me. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, just real quick. I'm not going to interrupt a bunch this week, but I did want to say, when I say you're in the theater, it felt like I don't know if you've ever seen a theater production in a black box theater, where the entire space is the stage. It felt like that sort of production. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they are theoretically limited. Just the scope of the story is limited because it was once on a stage, but I think that they made good use of that in the movie, in the adaptation. And again, I think some of the staging is really clever. And I guess my point is, I liked it a lot more the second time because some of the things about it didn't immediately jump out at me, and maybe shame on me for missing them on first go around. But pay attention, and there's a lot of good subtle stuff in this movie, I think. Hugo, what do you think?
I also really enjoyed it. I like the theatrical element. I feel like I think it's because I think the way that it most feels like a theater production is, first of all, the locations, obviously, because it's basically one location with a few different rooms of the same location making the whole of the movie. There's a few scenes outside on the street, but overall it's pretty much one location. But what I enjoyed a lot about this is that the acting really feels like it's a theater production. It's really I don't know how to explain it. It's not over the top in a negative way. It's very theatrical.
They're playing the back row.
Yes, it's not naturalistic, but it really works because of the fact that this comes from theater. And
it's sort of a
the way that
speech.
It's definitely heightened. And there's a lot of monologuing and that sort of thing. But I feel like what this can improve on what would be a theatre production of the same story is that because they use a lot of close-ups and they really put you in the room with the characters, you feel their emotions. I think you feel their emotions a lot more because you're so close to them. And performance is amazing. Chadwick Boseman was heartbreaking in this film for me.
Yeah, man, for real.
For real world, he's a brilliant actor and he's great in the film. And add on top of that the real world situation of him unfortunately dying while he was making this.
We're not in the spoiler section yet, are we, Riz?
Not yet. I can throw up the spoiler.
No, we don't need to be yet. But like, I mean, there's a scene in the middle where he yells at God and says, "Strike me down, God." And he said this within presumably a few months before dying of colon cancer at the age of 42, which is, like you said, pretty powerful real world context.
Yeah, he's literally talking about death and mortality and how unfair life is, which works both for him as a black man and within the story for the character as a black man who's being exploited for just being an artist and not getting his due. But it also works for him in real life because he was dying when he was making this film. And I believe he finished the role and he died a few weeks after the production was finished. So, yeah, it worked for me on that sense.
And I, for one, was not aware of his illness. I know that it was, it was not a publicly, like, obviously some people had to have known about it, but, the fact that they kept that under wraps and that he carried himself through all these productions, I never would have guessed, because this wasn't the only movie that he's made while battling colon cancer. And I know my mom passed away from colon cancer when I was a freshman in college, and I know what her battle was like, and it's like I'm just so impressed by the strength of his character. Not the strength of his character, but the strength of his character.
Right.
And you can actually see that. You can see that in the movie. This was very easily a role that he could dive into, because I'm sure he had a lot of his own emotions about his personal situation that he could bring to light through his character here. It was very, very, very good.
Yeah, I think among other things, this movie is just for me, it makes his death is already extremely sad. He doesn't need to be a good actor for his death to be sad, but like he is a great actor, and like it's a major loss for not just his family and his friends, but also like the industry, and like for us as audience members, it sucks, and he's so good in this, and he had a potentially long career ahead of him where he could have given us more movies like this, and it's a major loss for the industry.
I feel like he was just finally, like, he was reaching the pinnacle of his career. Like, he's been on the climb for a very long time, and he's had some really like stellar roles that and he's jumped into some very iconic historical figures. But I mean, just looking at The Five Bloods and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and then of course Black Panther being what it was, like I think we were just getting to the zenith of his pop culture relevance, and it's makes it an already tragic story even more tragic. But So we haven't talked about the movie itself much. Real quick, just a plot rundown before we get into spoilers, just so we can get some context we're talking about.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is based on August Wilson's play. It's one of 10 in his Pittsburgh cycle. Are you guys familiar with the Pittsburgh cycle?
I am not.
I only learned about it because of Fences 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
So August Wilson wrote 10 plays, each set in the different decades of the 1900s, about the black experience in America. And so this is his play from the 1920s, and Fences, I guess, would have been his play from the 1950s. And he wrote 10 plays kind of like thematically tied together, and this is one of them. And I guess story-wise, it just is it's a recording studio, and they're 4 band members are there to record songs with Ma Rainey, who's this female black singer who's very popular again in the 1920s, and that's
a real historical figure.
Yes,
she's a real historical figure. I'm not sure how accurate this is to her. I like Grizz. I didn't know much about her before this movie, but she's played by Viola Davis, and the trumpet player in the band is a man named Levy. Levy, yep. Played by Chadwick Boseman, who is very cocksure and has a swagger about him, and has these grand ambitions to have a band of his own and not just play with this jug band, as he calls them. And things kind of go south for Levy towards the end of this movie. Not quite in spoilers yet, but it's a tough break for Chadwick Boseman. It's a very, very tragic character, and tragic play in the scheme of things.
So we're going full into spoilers?
I think we should, because we're dancing around it.
Yeah.
So,
so going into spoilers, the ending is what put the whole film into focus for me, because I was feeling the power of what was being said and what the actors were going through, what they had gone through in the past. We find out about Ma Rainey's struggle being a singer who she completely understands that the white man at the time was only using her for her voice, but they didn't really care about her. And we get Levy's backstory of him, of these white men. He lived in the South, basically raping his mother in front of him, and his father seeking revenge, but then being killed as well. So they all have this tragic background, and I felt it, but I didn't know what the film as a whole was trying to say, how it was going to bring all of it together. And the end, where essentially Levy has written this song, and the white producer just gives him a few dollars for it, and said he had promised that he would let him record it, but they don't. And then he ends up being so angry that he kills one of the other band members.
R.I.P. Toledo.
In a tragic moment. Yeah, R.I.P. Toledo, poor guy. In a really tragic moment, and it's heartbreaking.
Very sad.
Especially because of the performance. And then the final scene is what really nails it for me. The final scene, we see Levy's song that we've seen him sing and played little bits of during the film, that he was writing, being played, that the producer had basically stolen for a few dollars from him, being played by this white band in the most boring recreation. Also in the most boring, stale recreation of blues ever.
They were like animatronics at Chuck E. Cheese to the way they were playing that song. They're just like static and not jazzy.
Yeah.
Not jazzy, not bluesy at all. It was honestly really depressing.
I don't know if Hugo, how familiar you are with American music history, but this was not an uncommon story.
No.
I mean, even
relatively.
Some of the most famous, white singers of all time got famous off of black people's music. And,
yes, absolutely.
And, Elvis Presley, a lot of his number one hits were also already sung by other musicians, and they of course did not get the credit that people like Elvis. Elvis obviously isn't the only one, but
Right. Yeah, but exactly, because Chuck Berry was playing at the same time as Elvis, but Elvis is the king and the inventor of rock and roll, despite the fact that Chuck Berry was also playing at the same time. And
Marty McFly is the inventor of rock and roll. Actually,
Marty McFly invented rock and roll.
Yes.
But Hugo, you mentioned something that I think is the real lead into the what's going on in this movie is Ma Rainey's speech about the black man only uses her because she makes music and makes money for them, and that's I think kind of the whole point of the movie is that
it is
the power dynamic between black people in the entertainment industry, particularly in the early 1900s, and also beyond the early 1900s, there's a power in their economic viability, right? And so I think that this whole movie is about a power struggle in a big macro sense, but also like between individuals. Ma Rainey has power because she can make people money, and therefore the white people in the movie are willing to put up with a certain level of behavior from her. She's difficult. That was like my big takeaway in the first viewing is she's very difficult to work with. She's very demanding. She's not very friendly with anybody, and I kind of didn't really get why she was like that. And then she explains exactly why she's like that to Cutler later in the movie, which is, I have power as long as they want to record my voice. I have power over them, and they have to accommodate me. So I'm going to get every inch I can out of that power, because once I sign the line and they have my voice, they got no use for me, and I'll be discarded. And she's exactly right. Like later in the movie, towards the very end, they try to stiff her a little bit on the payment. They try to not pay her nephew, who's there recording with her, and they said, we'll pay you out of your paycheck, and she says, no, you pay him what he's owed and pay me my full money. And then the only reason they acquiesced to that is because she hadn't signed the release form on her recording, and so she predicts exactly what's going to happen at the midway point.
Yeah, that scene is also a brilliant moment. It's one of the great monologues of the film. Viola Davis in this role, she's playing this woman who's just doing everything she can to be demanding and annoy these people, because she knows that as soon as she's recorded the songs, they have no need for her anymore. And at the same time, she really doesn't want to be there. She knows she has to, because she has to make money off her music, but she really wants to go back to the South, to her people, to her fans, and singing her songs on her tour.
Right. And there's also discussions in the rehearsal space for the band is down below in the basement, which I think is one of the bits of staging that I thought was pretty clever in the movie. The title of the movie it's a triple entendre. It refers to a song, the title of a song that Ma Rainey sings, which is like the song title is a reference to a dance, but it's also a double entendre of her ass. And the third, I think the third interpretation of the title is a black bottom. These four black men spend the entire movie, in the basement basically, of this recording studio that's hot and stuffy, and the ceiling fan barely works, and there's no lighting and that kind of thing. And at the very end, when Mr. Sturtevant, the white producer, kind of shoots down Levy and says, I'll take your songs off your hands for $5. That's the best I'm going to do. There's a shot of him ascending the stairs from Levy's point of view at the bottom of the stairs. And I thought that was pretty meaningful, in terms of...
You stay down here, and I'm going up there.
Climbing the economic ladder in America and how difficult that was. Ma Rainey had been able to do it, but Levy was shut out. He thought he had the same opportunity Ma Rainey had, but they'll do, these white producers will do anything to not have to deal with someone like Ma Rainey or someone like Levy. It's so much easier to just pay them for their trouble and have their white band record it, even though it sucks when they do that. Like, the music sucks.
It really does.
But I also think that the opening couple minutes of this movie really prime you to what you're about to see. Again, once I was able to watch it twice, the first few minutes really struck me more the second time. Do you guys remember what the opening images are of this movie?
Buying a pair of shoes.
No,
that's isn't it the concert? Isn't it the concert?
Yes. Yes. So the first beat is Ma Rainey playing a concert, but that's not the first thing we see. I've said this on this podcast before. I'll say it again. Opening images. I always pay a lot of attention to opening images and opening lines, because that's valuable real estate. The opening image in this is two young black men running through the woods at night in period clothing, and they just drop you into that without any context or anything, and they seem to be running from something. Turns out they're running to something, but like you see two black men in period clothing running through the woods, and you hear dogs barking in the distance. You immediately think runaway slaves. That's like the image that came to my mind for me, and that's kind of a narrative head fake, because it turns out they're actually running to this tent to see Ma Rainey perform. And I think that's an interesting choice to begin, particularly when you're talking, a movie about climbing the economic ladder and how difficult that is for black people, and, kind of being trapped into this, trapped down below by white people for it's as much as they can. They'll pull them up the stairs if they can make the money to sing into a microphone, but then they're going to push them back down as soon as they can. And then so these two guys are going to a tent to see Ma Rainey perform in the opening scene. And in this opening scene, Ma Rainey's performing, and then Levy jumps to the front of the stage for his trumpet solo and literally steals the spotlight. The spotlight goes off Ma Rainey to Levy, and then she steals it back from him, which I think is, again, a good microcosm for the power dynamic.
Upstaging each other.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
between
And
them.
what Levy is going to try to do in this movie, and what Ma Rainey's going to try to do, which is keep any amount of power she can. And her power is people want to hear her sing. And so she uses that to get the spotlight back.
So
Things
really
like that.
opening
Those are things that you don't notice in your first viewing, but once you like kind of know what the movie is, like a lot of stuff like that jumps out at you.
Yeah. Well, and
to the point that I could remember the concept, but I couldn't remember that scene specifically. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I did not commit to memory the part where they're running, and of course now that you've said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
That is interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And like I imagine when you were talking earlier about the white guy ascending the steps, having taken what he needed from Levy, I imagine that scene is ripped straight from the stage production of this.
I'm sure, yeah.
Probably.
Down to the lighting in that is just so stage production to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, more things about the staging though. Like, there is a room in the recording room that it's a locked door. Then, like, early in the play / movie, Levy tries to open the locked door and he can't. He tries multiple times, and then finally, Ma Rainey fires him in the third act, and he goes down and like kicks the door in to try to like break through. And turns out it's a door to nowhere. It's a door to 4 walls that are still enclosing him. I think there's probably a metaphor in there. I'm not an English major, but I think there's a metaphor of Levy trying to break down a door and ends up going nowhere. So again, I think the staging is clever, and in the storytelling they're able to get in. Also, even like when they're in the recording space, like the two white guys standing above, like elevated in the recording booth, looking down on Ma Rainey and her 4 black guys making this music. That's also kind of telling, I think.
Yeah, I mean. There's a ton of symbolism in this movie, and obviously in the play itself, and it is not, well, at least to me, it's not particularly subtle, but I kind of like that it's not that subtle, because I think it's driving home a message that sadly still needs to be driven home about the way minorities are treated in the United States even now. This is set years ago, and
100 years ago, almost.
We continue to face similar problems to this, and it's sad. But so that's the power of a movie like this, is that especially when it gets into the Oscar discussion, it's going to bring forward the message and the symbolism that is throughout this movie, and put that to the forefront for people who otherwise might have skipped this movie. You had something you wanted to add, Hugo?
Yeah, and it's not just the discussion on racism, which obviously is a gigantic deal today, as it was in the 20s. But it's also the idea of cultural appropriation and how certain sectors of society exploit another sectors of society's culture to make money. That's a discussion it's something that's
and exploit their labor too.
Yeah, their labor and their culture and their art in order to make money. It's very topical and feels like something that could happen today. Like the film could be about a hip hop recording artist, and it would work.
I just wanted to say, because Josh and I both put our fingers up, like we both had stuff we wanted to say at the same time. I wanted to talk about, recently we watched Citizen Kane before Mank. And to draw sort of a parallel with Ma Rainey and Citizen Kane, I felt like they used the lighting and the staging of, like we talked about with people being elevated and stuff like that. It's similar to Citizen Kane in the way they used that to tell the story of the story. So it's, like you see a lot of times where characters are having a dark moment, they enter into the dark spaces of the room,
right.
And that's obviously that's a very commonplace thing today, and but it's something that Citizen Kane was well known for, was the lighting, and how they use that for symbolism. What did you want to say, Josh?
I wanted to talk about the Oscars and this movie.
Let's do it.
I think that we. I briefly mentioned last episode. I was talking about The Sound of Metal and Riz Ahmed in that and his Best Actor chances, and I said there's a different frontrunner this year for Best Actor, and that has to be Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
You know, the Oscar season is a little weird this year because like the film festivals that usually precede the Oscars, like some of them happened, some of them didn't, and like the Oscars are 2 months later than they usually are. So like it's hard to like tell where the Oscars stand right now. But I think the one thing that people have been talking about is Chadwick Boseman. Maybe not as a completely sure thing to win Best Actor, but pretty close to a sure thing to win Best Actor. Anthony Hopkins is also in this conversation, but the fact that Chadwick Boseman tragically passed away in August, I think is helping, but I don't think it's helping that much. I think this performance is just outstanding and unreal, and if he wins, it'd be very well deserved.
Yeah, I don't think it would be undeserved.
Circumstances. Yeah.
That's when Heath Ledger passed away after his performance as the Joker, there was a lot of people who talked about did he actually deserve it? This is a comic book movie. Is it really that great of a performance, or are we giving it to him because he died? And I think that people might still ask that question if Chadwick Boseman wins, but I think the answer will be resounding. No, he kind of deserved it for this role.
No, he deserves it. Yeah,
performance is Oscar worthy, and I don't think anyone could deny
100%.
that.
Yeah, and he also might get a double nomination this year because
he could get supporting actor
amazing
for
in The Five Blood as well. So yeah,
I agree. I think he's one of the best parts of that movie too, which, as we discussed last week, is also a really good movie.
Yeah. So anyway, do we have any final thoughts on Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, or do we want to skip? Do we want to go ahead and rank it on our FTR list?
Let's rank it on the Film to Remember list.
Okay, so as we do every week, we rank our films to remember that we discuss every week on a single list that is going to soon become really unwieldy, but it's fun. It's just a fun thing to do.
That's why it's going to be
the current
fun.
List. Yeah, that's why it's fun. The current list is at number 1 we have Citizen Kane, and number 2 we have The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. And number 3 we have It's a Wonderful Life. Number 4 Rudy. 5 Mank. 6 Jackie Brown. 7 Sugarland Express, and 8 Godfather Part 3.
/Coda.
So /Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, 5 Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, that title is ridiculous. So if I can start, I would rank it, I think, either at number 3 or at number 4. I would put it above Rudy.
Well, we know you put it above Rudy.
Life. Yeah, let's not get into that. Yeah, it's either above or below A Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life for me. What do you guys think?
Lower for me. I'm thinking between Mank and Jackie Brown is where I'd put it. So number 6. Maybe even below Jackie Brown, but I think above Jackie Brown.
Yeah, looking at the list, I think I would put it above. I would put it below It's a Wonderful Life. I would put it above Rudy, but
sounds like you are splitting the difference between us then?
Yeah.
Sounds like that's
above Rudy, but below It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, so if I say I would probably put it above It's a Wonderful Life, so we would go below It's a Wonderful Life, and it would go above Rudy, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
But I say below Mank.
You say below Mank.
I think we're averaging. I think we're averaging between It's a Wonderful Life and Rudy.
Yeah. So it's on number 4, I would put it. But again, the list is a mess because Jackie Brown should be like number 3 at least. So
you don't have to say that every time we talk about this, Hugo. So far, you have.
I'm going to say it every time.
You gentlemen.
No, I'm going to stop. I'm sorry.
You guys segue into our next topic. I have to go find a computer charger real quick. I'll be back down in 2 minutes. So
go ahead. Okay, so for our main topic is our 2021 preview, or rather it's a section in which we're going to talk about some movies that we're excited for in 2021. So first thing, we want to do a sort of a quick rundown of all the movies that are coming out this year, and it's going to be a crazy year because a lot of stuff got delayed. A lot of movies were supposed to come out in 2021 anyway, so there's so much stuff that is supposed to come out. We'll see if something gets delayed. Shall we start? Maybe in our rundown we can start from.
Well, I just want to say before we jump into, I just wanted to ask. For me, I usually find out about some movies, articles and news reports about movies, I'll hear about some of that. But most of the movies, when I determine that I'm excited about a movie, it's watching the trailer in a movie theater. Is the fact that we haven't been going to theaters in the last year made it harder for you to find movies to be excited about, or have you guys always been more into the movie news sites, and that's how you determine when you're excited?
Yeah, not really for me, because when I go to movie theaters, trailers are usually in Italian, and I kind of I never like the translations, and I kind of tune them out. And a lot of the trailers, like they often show a lot of crappy Italian comedies, so I sort of tune out that part, and I never really discover films that way. But Rotten Tomatoes, or Tomatoes if you're American, every year publish sort of a huge rundown of all the movies that are supposed to come out in the following year, and I quite often just read that and then either make a list or add them to my watch list on Letterboxd, and then that's how I know which movies I'm excited for and which movies I'm not. What about you, Josh?
I usually just have a sense of like, these are some people whose movies I've liked in the past. What are they up to this year? Are there any movies coming out this year that are made by, even if it's just someone who's made one movie, like for example Under the Silver Lake, which we talked about in our first episode. I was very excited for that movie just because David Robert Mitchell had made a really good movie in It Follows. So even though it was only his second movie, I was still excited about it. So I usually try to figure out who's making what and have a sense of when those will be out. But mostly I think it's just like podcasts and Twitter. Yeah. It sounds stupid, but that's like where I get a lot of information from. Like I'll pull up Twitter and people be talking about this trailer for this A24 movie that had just dropped, and even if I've never heard of anybody in it, I'll give it a watch. Or I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they do my job for me and kind of talk about. I mean, I just listened to several episodes of podcasts about what people are excited for in 2021. So, keep my ear to the ground that way, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it's always like I said, I'll hear some stuff from movie news sites and things like that, but mostly it's just I go to the theater so often that I'm seeing trailers for new movies all the time, and that's and that's how I usually get excited for movies. So this has been an unusual year where like I'm aware a lot of these movies are coming out, but I haven't seen a whole lot about them because I haven't been going to the movie theater.
A lot of like I had to pull up the Wikipedia pages for like several of the movies we're going to be talking about just so I can like have something to say, because I don't really know the details off the top of my head. I just know I'm excited because this person's making it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to do a rundown, right, Hugo?
Yeah. So I sort of made a rough list of some notable releases for this year, and I divided it into some different groups. So first of all, we have the first group, which are we had a discussion about this because movies that are competing for the Oscars because the Oscars are a bit later this year. I believe they're in April.
The Oscar window,
right?
The Oscar window usually is just the calendar year, so December 31st is the cutoff. But this year the cutoff is like sometime in February because of COVID. So like, there are some movies that will not be released until January, February that are still competing, like against Ma Rainey, for example. Ma Rainey will compete against these movies for Oscars.
So the movies that, if you go to their IMDb page, they might be listed as 2020 films, but they're still releasing in 2021 for the vast majority of the audience. And so
a lot of these played festivals in 2020. Like some of them were released at Sundance, some of them at Venice or Toronto. So like only film press have seen them, but like the general public has not yet had a chance to see these.
Yeah. So some of these are movies like Nomadland, which seems to be a favorite in many categories. Am I wrong?
Quite possibly a Best Picture frontrunner. Yes, quite possibly.
I'm excited for that one. I'm not going to go into huge details about it, but Frances McDormand is the star of that.
Yeah.
And
she is.
And she's brilliant in everything she does.
She's a very good actress, but most of the movies I've seen her in, she plays a kind of unlikable person for the most part, like gruff. Mm-hmm. And from what I saw of the trailer for this, she seems more endearing in this one, so I'm excited to see her in a role that I'm not used to seeing her in.
Watch more Coen Brothers movies, dude, because she's endearing in a
in
lot of those.
Delightful in those, yeah. She's also great in what's that movie called? That Wes Anderson movie, second to last movie he made. Oh God, what's it called? The one about the Boy Scouts. Moonrise Kingdom. Yeah. She's so good in Moonrise Kingdom as well. But anyway, so we have Nomadland, we have Minari, which has been at the center of some controversy with the Golden Globes because they wouldn't include it as an American movie, even though it was produced and made in America. It's kind of weird.
Let me go on record. Here. The Golden Globes are meaningless. They suck.
They are. They do suck.
And people treat them with some kind of pizzazz because it's like the second oldest award show after the Oscars, and like a lot of celebrities show up for the show. But that's the reason the Golden Globes exist, is so that celebrities show up to the show. They are trying
and get drunk.
All awards are stupid. I get that, but like I actually care about the Oscars. No one should care about the Golden Globes. They're dumb.
I agree.
And
I draw
the
some
supposed
enjoyment.
Power. Go ahead.
I draw some enjoyment from the Golden Globes just because Ricky Gervais comes on and makes fun of all the celebrities
sure.
in the audience.
And but
fair.
People talking about Minari's being shafted by the Golden Globes. Yes, they've been shafted, but also stop thinking the Golden Globes mean anything. They're stupid. They're dumb. Whatever.
I agree. I just think it was particularly shitty of them to do that to this film because it's by all accounts great movie, frontrunner for the Oscars. Yeah, a bit. Then we have Promising Young Woman, which was supposed to come out March last year, but has been delayed, and we haven't been able to see it. It has released in theaters in the US where it was available, but of course most parts of the US you wouldn't go to a theaters right now, and it's releasing on streaming I think next week or something. It was
something
supposed
like
to. I think it was.
I'm very excited.
I think it was 7. Yeah, this looks great. Revenge movie.
I love Carey Mulligan.
Fantastic. Yeah. Another round is by the director of The Hunt. It's a Danish film starring Mads Mikkelsen. It's sort of a quirky but also existential comedy about some middle-aged men who decide to basically start day drinking every day, and shenanigans ensue. Yeah. Then
feel like
Zola is a film that
I thought I remembered seeing it available on streaming services before the end of 2020.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't though. So
I've definitely seen it on Amazon Prime recently as one of those rent while it's in theaters or something like that.
I'm not entirely sure. And then Zola is a film that somebody added on the list that I don't know.
Yes, that is the movie that is adapted from a Twitter thread, which I believe is the first of its kind.
What?
There was so I have not read the Twitter thread because I don't want to be spoiled for the movie, which is a crazy sentence to say.
That sounds insane. That sounds like I'm making it up.
No, I think it was in 2018, I want to say, this woman identified as Zola had this just bananas Twitter thread about her time as a stripper in Florida, I want to say, that involved like drug running and murder and heists. And it was apparently just bananas, and it took over the internet for a couple days. Again, I didn't read it. I don't know how I missed it. But then, like, immediately someone snatched up the rights to the story. And if you go to the Wikipedia page for Zola, it says based on, and then it lists like an article that like the article is basically just a recap of the tweets. So it says based on this article and also tweets by XYZ. So it is based on tweets by this person. And
so she's gonna get credit for it.
I guess.
That's amazing.
But also tie it back to Ma Rainey. Dusty, the woman who Ma Rainey's girlfriend, the woman who plays Dusty, is also playing Zola in this movie. Yeah. So this played, I think, Sundance, and like the people who have podcasts that went to Sundance, they all seem to love it. So cool. Yeah, Zola, I'm in. Based on tweets.
Okay, so we're running a little long, so I'm just going to go through the rundown really quickly, and then we get into the stuff that we are personally most excited about. Next up, we have a bunch of blockbusters that are coming out. We have No Time to Die, F9, the latest Fast and Furious, Top Gun Maverick, long-awaited sequel.
Very
I guess.
excited about Top Gun Maverick.
Just
say that real quick.
Just to see, and we'll talk about it later, but just to see Tom Cruise do some crazy stuff and risk his life for our entertainment.
Well, I want to see Tom Cruise, but also like here's what I want. I want to be in a theater, and I want to see that the sunset and just everything bathed in orange, and like the silhouette of planes flying out of that sunset, and that cheesy fucking guitar riff going, and then
hell yeah,
I want that. I want that so bad, and I want Glenn Powell in a mustache with aviators. I just want all of this, and I'm so excited.
Yes. Then
I need that
we
right now.
have the Uncharted movie that is supposed to come out with Tom Holland.
adapted
I don't know.
from
Maybe
the
it'll be
video
good.
game series Uncharted.
Yeah, it'll probably be terrible like every other video game movie, most others, but it might be good.
I'm
We
holding
don't
out
know.
hope.
Yeah, I'm going to skip the ones that we're going to talk about later, by the way.
Okay.
Then we have the Marvel movies that we are going to get into later as well. We have four Marvel movies releasing this year: Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man 3, and Eternals. We have two of the villain Marvel movies by Sony, Venom 2 and Morbius. We have Ghostbusters Afterlife. Whatever. Then we have Raya and the Last Dragon by Disney, which looks really good. We have the Suicide Squad by James Gunn. We have the Snyder Cut, which we are not going to be talking about. Please.
I want to do a whole episode about it.
we could, but not today. Not today. We could technically. Then we have some. Well, I call them relatively smaller movies of interest. But what I mean by this is basically all the other movies that are releasing that are not based on franchises or IP or that sort of thing. Some of these we're going to talk about when we talk about the movies that we are personally most excited about. But we have movies like West Side Story by Spielberg, In the Heights, Babylon, which is the next Damien Chazelle film that's supposed to release. Ridley Scott is making a movie, and etc. etc. etc.
A couple movies, actually.
Yeah, he's having a busy year.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Anyway, so do we want to get into... No, each of us has five... Each of us is going to just throw out 5 movies that are the ones that are most exciting to us personally. And then at the end, we're just going to say which one of them is... If I could watch only one film in 2020, which would it be? We'll just say that at the end. So who wants to start? Josh, Grizz?
Josh.
I'll start by saying that you missed a couple on the list that we're not going to discuss.
Oh,
one
sorry.
being Blonde, which is
Blonde.
the biopic about Marilyn Monroe, starring Ana de Armas, which just that logline right there, I'm in. I'm very excited about it.
Yes.
Ana de Armas was poised to have a big 2020, being a Bond girl and playing Marilyn Monroe, and now she's poised to have a big 2021, assuming both or either of those movies come out in 2021. And then the other movie was Don't Worry, Darling. That was the last movie I had to our list. That is the Adam McKay movie. Adam McKay's next movie after The Big Short and Vice. And I wish I had it in front of me, and I had pulled up how many people are currently listed as being cast in this movie, because it is insane. Like, every famous person you've ever heard of appears to be cast in this. And, like, Adam McKay's made some great movies, so I'm excited for whatever he does next.
Yep.
Okay, now that those are mentioned, I can go to, I guess, my first that I'm most excited about.
I'd say we can go in release order, just...
Well, I don't have the release order in front of me, so I'm just going to go off the top here. You mentioned Ridley Scott and him making a couple movies, so let's talk about The Last Duel. The Last Duel was supposed to come out, I think, Christmas or fall of 2020, and it got pushed back a full year. Now it's like, I think, October. Yeah, October 2021 is the current plan. And, again, this is directed by Ridley Scott and stars Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Adam Driver and Jodie Comer from Killing Eve. But the real headline for me is that this was the screenplay was written by Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Nicole Holofcener. And so you guys may remember that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are both Oscar winners for screenwriting when they collaborated on the script for Good Will Hunting, more than 20 years ago at this point. And they both, I don't think they've collaborated on a screenplay since. They both have writing credits elsewhere, but never together. So I'm just really pumped to see them back at the keyboard together. So a Ridley Scott movie, always gonna be good. Usually, well, not always.
Always
usually,
gonna be at least average.
Yes. You go.
Yeah, if I can say that, I think what's exciting about this movie is that Ridley Scott is a brilliant visual director. All his movies look fantastic and are really well directed. His best movies have really good scripts. When he works with a really good script, he makes an amazing movie because visually he's a master. And so having that team writing is promising.
And I also want to shout out Nicole Holofcener, who people probably won't talk about because she's not Ben Affleck or Matt Damon, but she also has a writing credit on this, and she is a great indie writer-director in her own right. So I don't know, I don't know the details. I don't know if Matt and Ben collaborated and then she was brought on later, or if she collaborated with the two of them. But regardless, she's great. I want to shout her out. Plot-wise, the only thing I have is that it's based on this book called The Last Duel, a true story of trial by combat in medieval France. Medieval France kind of turns me off a little bit. The fact that this takes place in the 14th century, I'm not like totally jazzed about, but it's Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and I'm sure Adam Driver will get to wear a cool knight's costume or something, so that'll be good.
I'm worried about their accents.
Their accents, yeah.
I hope they just go American and forget about the accents.
I wasn't until you just said that, and now I am. So thank you, Grizz.
Oh no! I hope not.
It reminds me of the Family Guy bit.
Yes.
Ben Affleck. Oh no! I have to be King Henry.
Henry VIII.
I have to be Henry VIII in 8 minutes. Hello, nailed it.
I was just referencing that bit with my wife a couple weeks ago.
I would like to disassociate myself from this as the British-speaking guy on this. Whatever.
Well, I'm doing an impression of Ben Affleck doing an impression.
Yeah. He would be terrible. I hope they go for a normal American accent. We don't need
it takes place in France, and it's about two knights who are ordered to fight to the death after one of them is accused of raping the other's wife. So that's the premise of the movie. And again, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Yeah, I mean, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, both writing and also in front of the camera acting. So sign me up. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
It sounds good. It sounds great. Do we want to go one by one, or do we want to go through the whole list? Yeah. Okay, go, Chris.
Go.
Okay. Then I will go ahead and say that the first one on my list is Raya and the Last Dragon, which of course is coming from Disney. It's the next Disney animated film. It releases March 5th, 2021. Directed by Don Hall, who was co-director of Big Hero 6 and Moana. And also directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada, who was the director of Blind Spotting, which is such a good movie. And
really good.
Very under the radar movie for a lot of people.
If that's streaming somewhere, watch it. It's really good.
And it's starring Kelly Marie Tran as Raya, who you will remember as Rose from The Last Jedi.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
And her lesser role in Rise of Skywalker.
Diminished
role, yes. And also stars Awkwafina.
She had to do technical stuff. Come on.
Also starring Awkwafina, who was fantastic in The Farewell. And I also really enjoy her in her comedic roles because she is a comedian. She was in Crazy Rich Asians and Jumanji, and honestly, she was really, really good in Jumanji, the next level. Mm-hmm. So if you had any interest in watching that, you should. And not to mention, like, Awkwafina is also going to be Scuttle in the new Little Mermaid remake.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And she's in Shang-Chi as well. So like, her contract with Disney must be insane.
Yeah,
they have her in like 4 movies coming out in the next 2 years.
What is this movie about?
Yeah, so the plot is basically Raya is has been training her whole life to defend the Dragon Gem, and but the world is changing, and I don't remember all the details from the trailer, but basically she has to adventure out. She has to find the last dragon in order to save her culture. So and she's got you guys can't see the picture, but she's riding this like armadillo mole. I don't know how else to describe it, but it looks adorable. And Disney's always good with animal companions, so I'm looking to see.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Looking to see what they do with that. But on top of what sounds like an interesting story, I'm a lifelong Disney fan, and so I'm always excited for the next animated Disney movie.
Mm-hmm. So that would be my turn, and first up I have I'll start with the French Dispatch because it's the only one on my list that doesn't have a release date. There's a Wikipedia says a generic May 2021, but IMDb doesn't have a specific release date, so we don't really know yet. It's the next film by Wes Anderson with a gigantic cast starring all the Wes Anderson staples. You have your Tilda Swinton, Lea Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothée Chalamet is the first time working with Wes Anderson, but somehow it feels like he fits perfectly.
It feels like he fits that really well.
Yeah, it feels like he should have been in a Wes Anderson movie already. You have Jeffrey Wright, obviously Bill Murray, Owen Wilson. It's an insane cast. Movie is set in Paris. Actually, it's not Paris. It's a I think it's a fictional French city in the mid 20th century. and it's centered around this French Dispatch, which is a newspaper, American newspaper in France. So I think the inspiration is the International New York Times, which is in Paris, and it's an American newspaper. But it's a Wes Anderson movie. I don't really care about the plot. It's just gonna have quirky characters. It's gonna have symmetrical shots and beautiful classic rock music and
great dialogue.
Owen Wilson being weird. I just love it. I love all his movies. They're quirky, fun, and they're just charming little things. And yeah, I'm excited.
We got to do a Wes Anderson episode at some point.
Oh, for sure.
I'm so down for that. I love
I
this
also
stuff,
love Wes Anderson movies. And I'm also we haven't seen a live action Wes Anderson movie in going on 6 years now. 7 years now, I guess. Or 6 years.
It was what?
End of 2014.
2014, yeah.
Or no,
yeah.
that came out in March. That was like close to 7 years now, I think.
It came early in the year.
Grand Budapest Hotel is what we're talking about.
Yes.
If you didn't know.
Yeah.
Which is a just amazing movie.
It's my favorite by him. It's brilliant.
Probably his best. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's probably his best.
I need to make a list.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, regardless, I'm jonesing for a Wes Anderson. Like Isle of Dogs was good, but like I want this movie now.
Wait, was that
French
not?
Dispatch.
Was Isle of Dogs not after Grand Budapest Hotel? Oh, you said live action.
It was.
You said live action.
action.
But his last live action was
I feel like Isle of Dogs was good, but it didn't do anything that he hadn't already done in Fantastic Mr. Fox. So it didn't feel as cool that he was doing stop motion, I think.
Sure.
But whatever. Next up, who was first, Josh?
I'll go next. Let's talk about Killers of the Flower Moon, which also does not have an official release date, but should be coming along sometime in 2021. This is directed by Martin Scorsese. Never heard of him. And starring Scorsese's two golden boys from different parts of his career. One, Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio, and two, Mr. Robert De Niro.
Sold again.
Who again have...
That's all you need to know. Moving on.
Those two, I think, have combined made 10 or 12 Scorsese movies. But I'm in just based on that. Apparently, it's adapted from a nonfiction book about murders in like the Osage territory of Oklahoma. So Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro in a movie about murder taking place in like the 1920s. I'm so in. I can't even tell you how much I'm in. Also, it was adapted by Eric Roth, who is one of the greatest screenwriters of all time, probably. He wrote a number of things, but among them Forrest Gump, and he had uncredited work on Mank earlier this year. Eric Roth's amazing, so you should know who Eric Roth is. But regardless, just everyone making this movie, I have the utmost confidence in, and I'm so excited. I hope it comes out at some point in 2021. It should, I think. And I believe this is going to be an Apple TV Plus release.
Yeah,
it's like
that's where I get a bit concerned.
Yeah, like a co-thing with Paramount and Apple TV Plus. I know that Marty is a big theatrical person where he wants his movies in theaters, but we'll see what kind of world this movie is released into before we know how we
I'm saying not because I'm against them releasing movies on streaming services. I'm against releasing it on Apple TV because it's like the only streaming service I haven't already signed up for.
Well, you should just so you can watch Ted Lasso, because Ted Lasso is the most delightful thing I saw last year. So get Apple TV Plus just for that, and also for this movie. So yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. Hopefully we see it. Yeah, I'm definitely sold.
Okay, so now it's me, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one I want to talk
sorry,
about.
but guys, we're running a bit long, so let's try to be quick.
Okay. Next one I have is One Night in Miami. Releases January 15th, so next week. It is directed by Regina King. This is her feature film directorial debut, starring Kingsley Ben-Adir as Malcolm X, Eli Gorey as Cassius Clay, Aldous Hodge as Jim Brown, and Leslie Odom Jr. as Sam Cooke.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, awesome. I was sold just at Leslie Odom Jr. playing Sam Cooke just because I love to hear him sing. So I was on board for that. But then watching the trailer, there's good conversation. The whole premise is that these four icons are meeting together in this hotel room one night in Miami. And so I imagine it's going to be a very conversationally driven movie.
Based on a play.
Also based on a play. And because of that, I'm excited for that. And in particular, I look forward to, the clever Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, jokes and persona. I'm excited for all that. Not to mention, Regina King is a fantastic actress, and I look forward to seeing what she does in the director's chair.
Yeah, for sure. Also, people have seen this movie. This played a few festivals last year. So, we do have some level of response to this, and it's been overwhelmingly positive so far. So, I'm pretty excited to see this too, just because it's probably going to compete for Oscars in April.
Yeah, I hope I can see it. It doesn't currently have a release date in Italy anywhere, so I don't know. It'll probably release before the Oscars or around the Oscars here, so I'll be excited to see it then. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Next up, I have Last Night in Soho, the next movie by Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is brilliant, just a genius. He's one of my favorite directors. He started out in comedy, then he moved to more of an action-driven movie with Baby Driver, and now he's completely moving away from comedy because this film, at least how he describes it, is a psychological horror. He cited some inspirations like Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now and Roman Polanski's Repulsion. So he's looking back as psychological horror from the 60s and 70s, so very paranoia-driven. It's all set in horror. It's all set in Soho in London, and I think it's on two different timelines, one in the 60s and one in present day, and it stars Anya Taylor-Joy, who's always great, and Thomasine Harcourt Mackenzie, who you might know from Jojo Rabbit. She plays the Jewish girl who hides
No Trace.
Yeah, she's a great young actress, and I'm really excited for it just because I love everything Edgar Wright has ever made. So, and I'm excited to see him fully going into horror because he obviously loves horror, and you can see that in Shaun of the Dead. You can see it in The World's End. And so I'm excited for it. I hope it's great. It's gonna be pretty.
Co-written by Christy Wilson Cairns, who co-wrote 1917 with Sam Mendes, which I really enjoyed that movie, but it was low-key pretty well written. I think people talk about the cinematography in that movie a lot, but it was also a really good script. Yes, but Christy Wilson Cairns, Scottish screenwriter, shout out to her. Hopefully, Last Night in Soho is. I'm also very excited for it too. I think it's gonna be great.
It sounds brilliant. So,
my turn, and let's talk about King Richard. King Richard is I think it's gonna be an HBO Max movie. I want to say, but we'll see. It was slated to come out in 2020, now 2021. It stars Will Smith as the father of Venus and Serena Williams, Richard Williams, hence the title, King Richard. And I don't know many details, but it's presumably about the influence he had in their young lives and helped develop them into the tennis superstars they eventually became. I do know that the two young actresses they have cast for Venus and Serena, one of them is 14. So I'm assuming that's kind of the time frame they're focusing on is Venus and Serena at that age. And I'm super excited. I don't know if this is going to be a Whiplash kind of movie, Damien Chazelle's movie from 6 years ago, but I hope so because Whiplash is one of the best movies of the last 20 years. And just Will Smith in this in a dramatic role in a sports drama is
about time.
I don't need anything else. Yeah.
And also, I love the Williams sisters, so I'm excited to see anything.
Yeah, honestly, I think that we need to talk more about, not on this podcast, but we in general need to talk more about how Serena Williams is maybe the most dominant athlete of all time.
Yeah, and
definitely
she's
in
that conversation.
relative to the rest of her sport, her dominance is on par with Gretzky and Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. It's insane.
It's just because tennis doesn't get the draw that some of the other sports do.
But also, if you know tennis, you would also argue about Steffi Graf and Martina Navratilova. So it's debatable, but
you mean
certainly
Navratilova.
Navratilova.
Grazie.
Whatever, you guys. Let's not get into that. But I agree. Let's say in the last 20 years, she's one of the most dominant American sports figures in the world for sure.
And you don't get to be that way with a normal childhood and a normal upbringing, I would think. So I think this movie is going to be interesting. At least I have high hopes for it.
Okay.
Agreed.
So next is me.
Yep.
Yes. So next I have Luca, the next Pixar film. We're just coming off having talked about Soul a little last week, and so why stop now? Looking forward to more Pixar in 2021. It is releasing June 18th. Directed by Enrico Casarosa. How am I doing?
I'm not. Is he Italian? Is he actually Italian? Because
Yes,
the movie
he
is
is
set
an
in
Italian
Italy,
director.
obviously. He is an Italian director. Okay,
Yeah.
then it's Enrico Casarosa. Enrico Casarosa. Because I wasn't sure if he was Hispanic of origin actually, but I know the movie is set in Italy, so I guess,
which is great.
It makes sense
That
that
means
he's
they actually got an Italian director to direct a movie
it's
set
really
in
cool.
the Italian Riviera. That's great.
Absolutely.
I don't have any casting info yet on this movie, which is unusual for a movie that's supposed to be coming out in 6 months. But I'm excited, of course, because I love Pixar, and I've never missed one, like watching it the first weekend, except for the Cars sequels. But I did go back and watch those eventually.
Fair.
But unlike the more introspective Soul or Inside Out, this seems like a Pixar movie more in the vein of Up or Onward, based on what information they do have out on the movie.
Yeah.
And the focus looks like it's going to be more on an unusual friendship between characters, and that's always something that people can relate to. So I think it's going to be a good one.
Cool.
I saw somebody on Letterboxd write a review about this and call it Pixar's Call Me By Your Name, and I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I don't know. I love Pixar, and it's an Italian Pixar movie set in Italy, directed by an Italian. So awesome! I love Call Me By Your Name, yeah, too. So awesome. Sounds good. My turn, I think.
Yes.
And okay, so I'm getting now to the movie that I was most excited for in 2020. That was unfortunately delayed, which is Dune. Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of the fantastic book.
Frank Herbert.
That's enough for me.
Frank Herbert.
Denis Villeneuve is enough
for me. Okay, Denis Villeneuve is enough for me. Then adaptation of Dune done with the correct budget, like giving it a proper chance to be good, is also enough for me. And then the brilliant cast would also be enough for me. Combine all that and it sounds just fantastic. There's some controversy around this film because it is coming to HBO Max, and Villeneuve has been quite... Yeah, we'll see, because it might... We don't know, but currently it's slated for October, and it should be coming out in theaters and on HBO Max in the US. And Villeneuve has been very vocal about this because he believes... Because this isn't an adaptation of the whole book, it's only the first half.
Right.
And if you know the book, there's a clear cutting point that I imagine is where the book, the film is going to end. But Villeneuve has been vocal about this, and he's been saying, "Oh, we might not get to make the sequel and complete the story if the movie doesn't make enough money at the box office. So, doing this move by Warner Brothers, where we weren't even consulted, is a problem, etc."
Yeah, he found out
so
via
we'll see.
Twitter. So
It was unfortunate, I have to say, but we'll see what happens with this film. But if it does release, I'll support it in theaters, because this is the type of movie that you want to see on the biggest screen ever, because it's Denis Villeneuve and he makes stuff that looks
and it's an important thing just to say in
screen,
general, with the way the movie industry is right now because of COVID. If we are able to go back to theaters and see these movies in theaters, I of course encourage everyone to do so and go see more movies than you used to, because we gotta save the theater chains so that we can go to movies in theaters.
Absolutely, because to be honest, the everything going to streaming is something that I'm not too excited about. I hope I get to see all these movies on the big screen, and I hope that going forward the big screen experience is still there and available.
I know that Warner Brothers said that every 2021 release will be on HBO Max day and date, but I'm not confident they're going to stand by that for the entire 12 months of 2021. Particularly, like, by October, I don't know. Most experts seem to think that, like, by the fall of 2021, we may be approaching something close to normal COVID-wise, so maybe theaters will have open by then. I don't really know, but, like...
It'll depend on that, and how quickly the vaccine can be spread across the population and all that.
But to your point, Hugo, I think that Denis Villeneuve definitely would prefer to see this in theaters. I'm sure Warner Brothers would prefer to see this in theaters from an economic standpoint. And I think that if they can put this in theaters, they will. So even though they've already committed to all the 2020 releases on HBO Max, I'm not sure they're going to hold on to that for Dune in particular. But we'll see.
We'll see.
All right,
my turn.
Got, Josh?
I have The Tragedy of Macbeth. We have a Macbeth movie coming out in 2021. And the reason I'm excited about it, it is written and directed by one Joel Coen, who is one half of the Coen brothers. And notably his brother Ethan... Huh?
By himself?
By himself. Yeah.
Yes. Notably, his brother Ethan is not collaborating on this, so it is the first Coen brothers movie from either of them that does not include the other. So, I've said on this podcast many times before, I love the Coen brothers. They're my favorite directors, so I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this. I don't know if this is like, listening to Wings or, This Do Shall Pass, George Harrison's first post-Beatles album. I don't know. I love My Sweet Lord. I love What Is Life, but I also love the Beatles, so hopefully this is an aberration and not the new future. But yeah, so it's written and directed by Joel Coen. It's obviously the Shakespeare play, one of the most famous stories in the English language ever written, and stars Denzel Washington, ever heard of him, as Macbeth, and Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth, and Brendan Gleeson as King Duncan, and yeah, I'm just really in. Everything about that I'm in. Cinematography by Bruno Del Bonal, who shot the Coen Brothers movie Inside Llewyn Davis, and is also one of the greatest living cinematographers working right now. So, it's also produced by A24. So, Coen Brothers and A24 doing Macbeth with Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, like just injected into my veins right now.
Of course, no official. This means Frances McDormand is once again playing an unlikable person.
Yes. No official release date, but I know that they were in production when COVID hit in March, and then they continued production in like June or July, and they wrapped production in July. So unless this movie has an 18-month post-production window, we will see it in 2021, I would think. So let's do it. Tragedy Macbeth. Hell yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So next I have In the Heights. Which is a musical. Releases June 18th. Same weekend as Luca is the current slate, so that'll be a busy weekend for me. Directed by John M. Chu, director of Crazy Rich Asians and 2 Step Up movies, which normally I would say is not a highlight of someone's IMDb page, but when you're doing a musical, a guy who knows how to shoot a dance movie, that's important.
You're bearing the lead here. Why is this an important musical, or why is this like a musical people should be excited about?
Because it is written by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Ever heard of him?
And so he wrote this before Hamilton.
Yes.
And this is starring Anthony Ramos, who you would remember from Hamilton, and A Star Is Born, as well as Stephanie Beatriz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Hell yeah.
And Jimmy Smits from NYPD Blue, several Star Wars movies, loads of other TV shows, and The West Wing.
Yes.
But the reason I'm most excited for it was that In the Heights debuted on Broadway when I was in college, and I was in the Glee Club in college. And so a lot of the guys that I sang with were also very into musical theater. And they were absolutely nuts about In the Heights. And, they all wanted to go see it and everything. They wanted to go out to Broadway. I don't know if they ever did, but so it's been on my radar since I was in college that, at one point I want to see In the Heights, because for me, I don't like to go just listen to the music from a musical. I want to see the musical, because it's literally half of what the production is is the visuals. So I've never listened to it, so I'm excited for that. And everyone was right about Hamilton, and then I finally got to see Hamilton when it went on Disney Plus. So I'm quite confident that I'm going to enjoy In the Heights.
Yeah, I just want to say that you said that Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote this before he wrote Hamilton, which is true, but it was a produced musical. Like, it's not like Hamilton was a big hit, and they're like, hey, Lin, what else you got? And he's like, well, I got this I wrote 6 years ago. No, it was also, a produced, and it was a hit, too. Like, to your point, people were aware of it, and they loved it, and, like, it wasn't quite as big of a hit as Hamilton, which became a cultural sensation, but it was good. It was well-received, so I'm very excited for this as well.
Okay. Awesome. Lots of musicals in 2021, aren't there? Compared to most years,
There's at least 2.
Yeah, at least 2 that are but high profile,
Yeah, for sure.
That doesn't happen every year.
What you got there, Hugo?
Yeah, next up I have Mission Impossible 7. what do I need to say? The Mission Impossible series, in my opinion, even though it might not be my favorite blockbuster series, but in terms of just being consistently great at what it does, it's probably the most consistent blockbuster series going on right now.
It's so good. It's honestly so good.
Like, the movies keep getting better and better.
Yes.
Tom Cruise risks his life. He runs a lot, and Chris McQuarrie is the one who made the last two, which are probably the best two. And the best thing about these movies are how much can you do in camera. They don't use that much CGI. They try to make everything happen for real. And the way they have to engineer ways to make these incredible action sequences happen is half of the fun of the films. Like, watching the making of these films is literally half the fun, at least for me.
Yes.
For sure.
And
Yes, they like someone pointed out to me recently, like, they are their own myth making. Like,
absolutely.
As part of promotion for Mission Impossible 6, they went on talk shows and showed Tom Cruise breaking his ankle while making Mission Impossible 6. Like, again, it's like it's self-myth making as they're making the movies.
And he's so committed. Like, for the last film, he learned how to do halo jumps and fly helicopters. And I
He
just
learned to fly
see...
helicopters for the movie. It's insane.
Yeah, and I just want to see what they're up to. How do you top that? And
I just want to
they
see what his
managed to do
insurance
it.
policy looks like.
Oh, he doesn't care. I think he fired an insurance company on the fourth one that went for the Burj Khalifa scene.
That makes sense. Also, in the fifth one, which I hadn't even seen the fifth one, but in the fifth one, he is holding on to the wing of an airplane as it flies, and they actually did that with Tom Cruise, and they said, if we hit a bird, Tom Cruise is going to die. Luckily, they didn't hit any birds, but I'm sure the insurance is insane for these movies.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this one and the next one are coming out back to back. One is 2021 and the next is 2022, and they're supposed to be the big conclusion to the story, because, I mean, Tom Cruise is amazing, but he's also 57 years old.
He's getting older.
At some point, he's going to have to quit doing something this intense. And so the fact that they are teaming up to make a conclusion to the story is really exciting for me, because sometimes these series, they keep going on and on and on, and they never end. But the fact that they are doing something final for this is really exciting. They've been filming. I think the film has almost wrapped production. There was that huge rant that Tom Cruise did against the crew because they weren't following COVID procedures. That came out on Twitter. That was funny.
Good on you, Tom
anyway,
Cruise.
I just want to see Tom Cruise do some crazy shit. To be honest, it's gonna be great.
Agreed. That's definitely one of the tops for me this year. So if you hadn't said it, it was going to be on my list.
Yeah. Okay, Josh, last one.
So the last movie on my list is called Soggy Bottom. It's written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who is one of my favorite directors. He's amazing. Every movie he's made is amazing. Most recently, Phantom Thread, which was outstanding. And this is kind of going back to Paul Thomas Anderson's roots, because it takes place in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles in the 1970s. And that is both the time and place where Paul Thomas Anderson himself grew up. It's also the time and place where he got his big break in the film world with Boogie Nights, now 23 years ago. And it stars Bradley Cooper and Cooper Hoffman, who's the son of late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who also had a ongoing relationship with Paul Thomas Anderson and appeared in most of his movies. It also co-stars Alana Haim, who's one of the Haim sisters of the band Haim, and also Benny Safdie, who is one half of the Safdie brothers. I don't know anything about this movie other than the fact that it takes place in the San Fernando Valley in the 1970s, and that while they were filming it last year, there's a lot of paparazzi pictures of Bradley Cooper in 70s hair in a white 70s suit. I'm glad it's on screen. That's also very important to me. So just whatever's going on there, I want to see it. I want to know more. Apparently, on Wikipedia it says the movie depicts a high school student who becomes a famous child actor in the 1970s, portrayed by Cooper Hoffman, again, son of Philip Seymour. I'm freaking in. That just Paul Thomas Anderson, I'll see anything he does on opening night. So I'm a lifelong fan of his. I'm very excited for this. Soggy Bottom.
Soggy Bottom.
And the title is insane as usual. All his titles are incomprehensible and they're awesome.
That's not true, but yes.
Some of them, come on. A lot of them are weird. You don't know what they mean, but they're great.
I know what
you know?
Boogie Nights means. You're boogieing.
I know what the Master
At
means.
night.
I know what Magnolia means.
I don't know. I feel
Magnolia's
like
a tree.
Inherent
It's a tree.
Vice. What does it mean? I just
Well,
feel very
Inherent Vice is a Thomas Pynchon novel, so take that up with Thomas Pynchon, not
fair enough.
not PTA.
Fair enough.
All
But I'm always really confused at Paul Thomas Anderson movies, and I love them, and I don't know why sometimes, and I don't know what happened, but I love them anyway. So
I know
think
why.
they're
I'll explain to you
brilliant
why
in
you
that
love
sense.
them, buddy. So don't worry. We'll talk
fair.
Paul Thomas Anderson soon on this podcast, I think.
Fair enough.
right?
Fair
Very
enough.
soon.
Yes.
Okay, so for my last of my 5 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is one of the, I believe we said 4 Marvel movies
4.
slated for 2021 release.
Yes.
This one releases July 9th. It is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But he was the
Is
director
that
of...
Short Term 12?
Sorry?
Is that Short Term 12 guy?
He did Just Mercy was his most recent.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
His most recent film. And it's starring Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, Michelle Yeoh, Awkwafina.
Oh, hell yeah.
Again. So,
Sorry, I
reason
just love
I'm
Michelle
excited.
Yeoh.
Yeah, she's great, and dating back decades now in movies that have managed to gain popularity in the United States, all the way back to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and so I'm very excited about that. But the other reason I'm excited, I'm a MCU fanboy. I got my Civil War poster on the wall behind me. So in addition to that, after 23 movies, it'll be 24 after Black Widow comes out. Shang-Chi is going to be completely unlike all the previous Marvel movies, and that's something that's really nice to see in a franchise as big as this. They're going to, I'm hoping that it even comes close to the cultural impact of like Black Panther. I doubt that it'll quite achieve that zenith, but I like representation matters, and this is
Of course.
Yeah.
A big step in the Marvel universe for them to have in this case an all Asian cast for Shang-Chi. I mean, it's not all, but similar to Black Panther, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the other thing that I'm excited about here is that this movie is going to show more about the Ten Rings, which is in comic books. There's a character, the Mandarin.
Sorry, me and Josh are looking confused.
Who uses his in addition to his, the Mandarin has the mastery of Chi is his superpower, and but in addition to that, he also has 10 rings of power that all do different things like disintegration or matter manipulation or shooting like force blasts, stuff like that, right? Very comic booky stuff.
Fire, wind, heart.
Yes, precisely. But the Mandarin was traditionally Iron Man's biggest villain, and Iron Man is my favorite comic character, full stop. And I was very sad with the way they did the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, because we'll talk about that later, but so I'm excited to see this because it's a chance for them to do right by a character that, at least for hardcore Marvel fans, they may not have absolutely loved. It's grown on me, I'll say that, but I'm very, very excited to see the Ten Rings get the treatment that I've been hoping for.
Quick note, I said when you mentioned the director Destin Daniel Cretton, I mentioned Short Term 12. He actually did write and direct Short Term 12 in 2013 before Just Mercy, so I just wanted to throw it out there. Also, Short Term 12, amazing movie. Everyone should see it.
Okay, Hugo.
So, yeah, am I the last one?
Yes.
And, this movie, I don't know, I can't even explain how excited I am for this movie, and perhaps I shouldn't be. It's The Matrix 4.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm one of those weird people who loves the whole trilogy of The Matrix, to varying degrees. Obviously, the first one is an absolute masterpiece, and then the second and third are not as good. But personally, I absolutely love the second one, Reloaded, and I also really enjoy the story in Revolutions, even though the execution is admittedly spotty. And I also really like most of what the Wachowski sisters have done. I love Cloud Atlas. I'm watching Sense8 right now, and I think that's brilliant on Netflix.
Cloud Atlas is really good.
Cloud Atlas is really good.
Very, very good.
It's
Yeah.
a really, 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 really good film. And The Matrix 4, unfortunately, only has one of the sisters, Lana. Lily Wachowski has been taking sort of a hiatus from directing ever since. Ever since she came out of Strands. She took a bit of a step back. She's still involved. She's still involved with the story. She's been writing some TV shows, but she hasn't been involved in directing since then. She says she's on a hiatus, and she's probably gonna come back later. But Lana is still on it. She's writing this with David Mitchell, which is the author of the book Cloud Atlas. He has second credit on this screenplay, and I can't explain it. I'm so obsessed. I've been obsessed with The Matrix for 20 years.
You don't have to explain it. It's The Matrix 4.
I don't know. There's something about the idea that they're doing this now. I feel like they wouldn't do it because for years they said we don't care. We don't want to do it, and I feel like they wouldn't because I'm not sure if it was David Mitchell who came to them with sort of an idea, but anyway, they collaborated with him, and I feel like they wouldn't do it because the Wachowskis have many flaws in their movies, but they go for it. They take big swings. They do ambitious projects. They do interesting projects, even when they don't completely work out. And
they're at least interesting misses when they're misses. They're at least interesting. Yeah,
and they are very much their own. They have very much their own ideas, themes. They don't care
Visual
about
styles.
working visual style. They don't care about working within the system, and I do believe that they wouldn't do it if there wasn't a reason why they want to do it now. And also, Keanu Reeves is coming back. Carrie-Anne Moss is coming back. He is.
Okay, I was going to ask because there's some things that happened at the end of Revolutions that
exactly
would possibly.
I want to know. I want to know what happens. Keanu Reeves comes back. Carrie-Anne Moss comes back as Trinity. She also, there's stuff that happens to her in Revolutions. Jada Pinkett Smith coming back as Niobe. Lawrence Fishburne, interestingly, not in the film currently, at least. We have Lambert Wilson, who played the Merovingian in Reloaded and Revolutions, who's coming back. My theory is he's going to be the sort of the main villain of this new movie, but we don't know. And interesting character actors. We have Neil Patrick Harris, Jessica Henwick, Yahya Abdul Mateen II. We have a bunch of actors from Sense8. They wrapped filming in November, so the film is definitely done and coming out despite COVID. And I don't know, I have no idea what this film is going to be, and I'm being obsessive. I've been spending reading cyberpunk books, watching cyberpunk movies. I'm going to play the cyberpunk video game as soon as CD Projekt Red actually fixes it. I just need to see this movie. I just need it. And if I had to pick one, this would be definitely the one that I'm most excited about. I don't know how you guys feel about The Matrix, but I just adore it.
I'm super excited for any new Matrix movie. They're enormous movies in pop culture, and the first Matrix movie arguably changed blockbuster filmmaking for the next 20 years. So I'm definitely excited to see what's next.
More bullet time.
Chris?
Yes.
So anyway, we went a bit long, but okay.
So,
do you have anything to say about The Matrix?
No. Go ahead. Wrap us up.
Yeah. Just to wrap it up, I'd like to ask you what if you had to pick one. I already said for me it would definitely be The Matrix 4. If you had to pick one movie that you can watch in 2021 and everything else gets deleted, like it doesn't exist, which would be the one that you'd absolutely have to see? Tough question, I know.
Yeah, that's a really tough question.
But okay, I'll make it easier. What's the one you're most excited about?
Soggy Bottom. Give me Paul Thomas Anderson in the San Fernando Valley in the 1970s. Yeah, Soggy Bottom for sure.
Hell yeah.
I'm not good. I'm good at ranking movies after I've watched them. I'm not good at ranking them before I've watched them.
Yeah,
what are you excited about?
What are you excited about?
If I said you can only watch one of those 5, what's the one that you're going to choose to watch?
If I can only watch one of the 5, then I would say Shang-Chi.
Okay.
Because Marvel.
Hell yeah. Makes sense. So our idea for the next 3 podcasts will be that based on the movie that we're most excited about in 2021, each of us is going to pick a film to remember for the following week and a main topic that we're going to be talking about. So, for example, next week it will be Grizz's turn. Am I
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna
Yeah.
watch Iron Man 3.
Yes.
Because as I mentioned before, that there's a treatment of the Mandarin in that movie, and
Yep.
the Mandarin is going to be in this other one. Bonus points for anyone who also watches the short that they filmed that is a follow-up to Iron Man 3. I would love for you guys to watch that.
It's probably on Disney Plus,
But
right?
and then we're gonna talk Marvel movies next week.
Cool.
Yep. So that's the example, and we'll be doing similar stuff the following weeks with mine and Josh's pick. So if that's it, let's hope 2021 is a good one. A lot of movies to look forward to, and yeah, see you next week.
Please remember
Bye,
to
everyone.
like,
Subscribe, share.
and share.
Yes.
And all that stuff.
I almost had it.
Almost had
I just had to forget.
All right.
Bye,
Well, as
bye.
you just said, thanks everyone. Goodbye.